Hello again. I am in general a great one for leaving things alone as long as they are working, and I apply this principle to practically everything from political systems to the central heating and so on. As long as it's going okay, leave it alone. I particularly feel this way about the law, because we've seen in the last 2 or 3 decades hasty legislation about dangerous dogs, guns and other matters which is impossible to enforce and does nobody any good. In this sense, I am perhaps a conservative in the sense that I think that change to existing arrangements should not be hasty and done in a panic, but only after careful thought, and as long as we are quite sure that the new thing is better than the way things were. Take the law relating to marriage. At one time in this country, the age of consent was 12 and child marriages were quite acceptable. That's not actually quite so long ago. That was the case in 1929. It always amuses me when people huff and puff in disgust about the idea of Muhammad marrying Aisha when she was only 9 years old. In Elizabethan England, the age at which one could marry was set at 2 years younger than that. 7-year-olds were married at that time. The age rose a little until it became fixed at 12 for girls. This was the situation in Britain until 1929, when it was raised to 16. Just think of that. Within living memory, a 12-year-old girl could get married in this country. I give a link in the description of this video to a bit from a Scottish government document which discusses this. The English were a little bit more shy about admitting it and confessing that it was really the situation. I can't find anything which explicitly mentions it for England, but it was the same as it was in Scotland. Since the age of consent for sexual activity outside marriage was raised to 16 at the end of the Victorian period, it seems sensible to fix both the marriageable age and the age of consent at the same figure, which is to say 16. So matters have rested quite happily for almost 100 years. Now the law is being changed and the government is assisting in legislation to raise the age of legal marriage to 18. Why is this being done? After all, hardly anybody does get married at 16, and in any case you need your parents' consent. Why should the law be changed suddenly? The answer is, of course, immigration from Pakistan and Bangladesh. Some young girls of 16 living in Britain are being taken to those countries and compelled by their parents to undergo marriages against their will. This is of course regrettable, but I don't see why this country should change its laws because of something like that which is happening in another country. Surely this is, if forced marriages are taking place abroad, it's no concern of Britain really. If they're taking place in Britain, then it's already a criminal offence to force somebody to marry without their consent, and it's a criminal offence to take a child abroad and force her to marry there as well. I give a link to a leaflet on this in the description to this video. In short, since forced marriage is already a criminal offence, why do we need to change the law at all? This is not the first time that the law in this country has been altered because of the unfortunate traditional customs of some community or other which has chosen to settle in Britain. Since the age of consent to sexual activity is set at 16 for both males and females, and bearing in mind that marriage at 16 is almost unheard of and can only be undertaken with parental consent in any case, I really do not see why there's a need to change the law.